Thank you for listening to my devotional. The subject today is leaving everything behind to follow Jesus. I'll be reading Matthew 4:18-22. As he was walking by the Sea of Galilee, he noticed two brothers, Simon, who is called Peter, and Andrew, his brother, throwing a dragnet into the sea, for they were fishermen. And he said to them, "Come after me, and I will make you fishers of men." At once they left their nets and became his disciples. And going on further from there, he noticed two other brothers, James the son of Zebedee and his brother John, in the boat with their father Zebedee, mending their nets and putting them right. And he called them. At once they left the boat and their father and joined Jesus as disciples. In Matthew 4:18-22, we encounter a powerful and defining moment. Jesus calls Peter, Andrew, James, and John to follow him. Their response is immediate, radical, and life-changing. They leave their nets, their boats, and their livelihood without hesitation. This call to follow Jesus is not simply an invitation to walk alongside him. It's a command to reorientate one's entire life around his mission. For these fishermen, that meant a visible and dramatic departure from everything familiar. Yet this passage also helps us understand something essential about discipleship. Radical obedience does not always look the same for everyone. For some, following Jesus will mean stepping into full-time ministry. For others, it will mean remaining in their current work or calling, but living it in a radically different way. The defining shift is not always where we go, but who we center our lives around. At the heart of true discipleship is this question: is the will of the Father, the example of the Son, and the guidance of the Holy Spirit our central focus and compass? Following Jesus requires a decision that places his kingdom above every other priority. The disciples did not delay or negotiate. They stepped away from their former identities and stepped into a new one as fishers of men. This radical commitment remains the model for every disciple today. But the cost of discipleship is not limited to quitting a job or changing locations. Often, the cost is deeper and more personal. It may mean surrendering control, ambition, or the need for security. It may mean allowing Jesus to redefine success, purpose, and direction in our lives. Radical discipleship calls us to hold every role, title, and possession loosely, recognizing that everything we have ultimately belongs to God. Discipleship is never passive. It calls for movement, reflection, and obedience. It asks us to examine what we may be clinging to that prevents us from following Jesus wholeheartedly. In other words, what nets do we need to leave behind? For some, those nets may be external and obvious. For others, they may be internal, things like fear, pride, comfort, or misplaced priorities. Jesus calls each of us personally and intentionally, meeting us exactly where we are and inviting us into a transformed way of living. This call applies to every season of life. Whether we are students, professionals, parents, retirees, or ministers, Jesus invites us to align our daily work, relationships, and decisions with his mission. The lives of the first disciples show us that discipleship is costly but never empty. Following Jesus means stepping away from what is familiar and stepping into what is eternal. Just as he called fishermen to become fishers of men, he calls us to reflect his kingdom wherever we are sent. That may be in a church, a workplace, a home, or a community. When our work and calling are submitted to God, they become more than routines or responsibilities. They become vessels for God's grace, truth, and love. So today, let us pause and reflect on Jesus' call. Are we willing to follow him fully, even when it requires change? Are we open to allow the Father's will, The Son's example and the Spirit's leading reshape how we live and work each day? The call to follow Jesus is a call to transformation. It is a call to participate in something far greater than ourselves. Sometimes by going somewhere new, and sometimes by allowing God to transform the place where we already stand. Let us follow Him wholeheartedly, with no turning back. I invite you to read the full article. The link is in the description below.